Exploring the unknown, from conspiracies to mysteries. You are entering the conspiracy sector.
Well, welcome everyone to this very special program. You are sailing this ship with us today because we all have superhuman powers that we have inside of us. And Chris, you have superhuman powers, I have superhuman powers, and I can't think of a better show to express our superhuman powers than the conspiracy sector, which everybody's entering right now. That's a topic today, and this world is filled full of fantastical tales, some of them fake, some of them true, in regards to supernatural and superhuman abilities. There's been multitudes of tests throughout the ages, real scientific tests that go deep into the unknown of the human mind and abroad. And we'll get into some of these different things today. Things like remote viewing, Chris, which we've done, our own little experimentations with before and have been successful. Like needle in the haystack sort of successful type of stuff. Each one of us have had some pretty hard hits. And then, some of the time realistically been totally 180 off the other direction from seeing what it might be. But everybody to an extent has these abilities within them. We've all had these events of deja vu, where we know that we've been in this exact second in time, have been there, done that, but we just can't put our place on where we've been when we've done it, when we've had those exact instances of deja vu, and everybody has different, events of it. You can't describe just one. Mine was just looking up at a clock one time, one of my most prevalent ones, and I just know at that exact second in time I had seen myself 5 or 6 years before in a dream state, daydreaming, night dreaming, you don't know. I just know that I had seen myself in that exact second in time, and it was just something as simple as looking up at a clock and I know that I've seen myself here before, and I don't know.
Because
But
timelines repeat, and you have the Mandela effect, and you have dimensional bleed through, and everything that causes a lot of that.
yes, and see, that's some of the amazing theories too. You throw that into the play as well. Are we crossing into these different dimensions, or different dimensions crossing into each other, and we're getting glimpses of them? There was a whole nother realm of field into play here that we could discuss, but it varies much more than just that. The psychic field in itself has more than just remote viewing, telepathy, other things along this line. And then there's real life supernatural beauty, more real life ordinary supernatural beauties or abilities, like people who can have amazing endurance. Sure, they train, maybe years probably, but a lot of people have naturally much more endurance than many others. And many people have higher traits than others do. And this could be things like body alchemy, and just biology. Maybe certain blood types have better traits and whatnot. I wish that there'd be more studies like that dive in deeper to a certain person's blood type and genetic codes and whatnot, and see what they can come up with. Because maybe there's like that Wim Hof, who we'll talk about today. He's known as the Iceman. He can withstand cold temperatures for very long periods of time. He's trained himself, mind, body, spirit wise. Sure, he'll come out and tell you that, but there's got to be some sort of higher key natural ability to be able to withstand some of that as well.
Oh yeah, people can mentally train their body and train their cells to literally act in any particular combination. This is a set of abilities that I've come to find are called the molecular cellular solid abilities. That also involves shape shifting. That involves endurance. That involves basically the whole mind over matter. You're telling the body, hey, act in a particular way and in a particular pattern to endure a particular set of conditions, or to even regrow a limb. This is where you get phantom limb syndrome from, is the molecular cellular solid.
Oh yeah.
Is where people still feel an arm after it's been cut off. That's the same ability, because it's the energy that's surrounded the arm. It's like when you cut off a tree limb, they were able to actually measure the energy of a tree and see that the light from the sun was showing that the branch of the tree was still there, even after it'd been cut off. And I thought
Interesting.
yeah, it's the same thing. Plants have it, humans have it, animals have it.
It's kind of like that one test I heard about one time on Coast to Coast AM. They were interviewing this gal who did a stress study on plants, and she played some heavy metal music for some of these plants, and it was stressing them out apparently. And she played, some very nice angelic harp music for these other plants, and they were like happy and dancing. So, apparently plants can supposedly feel emotion as well. But that phantom limb syndrome, that's freaky. Right when I first heard about that when I was a little kid, I was, reading something. Shouldn't say little kid, is probably, middle school. And when I first kind of heard about that and understood what it was, freaky, but if you think about it, pretend you didn't have an arm, you probably at times still think you had an arm there because you had an arm most of your life. So it'd just be freaky that you could. Too bad we can't regenerate our own limbs as well.
Well, you can. It's just the human genome hasn't been built up to that stage yet. That's what the molecular cellular solubility does.
Speaking of superhuman power, that would be if I. Okay, since we're on the topic, we got to talk about it. Everybody, comment your favorite superhero down below. Which one you think you should be in real life, probably. When it comes to those powers, I love Wolverine. I'm brute, I'm mighty, pretty tough. But I think being able to heal from your injuries would be an amazing power to have, personally. So there's the regeneration effect right there. How about you?
Yeah, mine would be more like either Superman mixed with like how Batman conducts like business, where you have Superman's capabilities when you have Batman's, resources.
Charisma.
Yeah, essentially you just blend all that together. He's got the money and the charisma and the technology, and Superman has the rest of it.
Hey, you forgot the chicks, man. You forgot the chicks. And money, a lot of money.
Yeah, money gets a lot of money. Yeah, but also in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you're going that route, you have not necessarily just Captain America. He's just strength, but you have Iron Man, which is like Batman, and you have, because his is mostly brains, like where he's able to see an entire machine being built or an entire concept being constructed. Then you have ones that are like brute strength, like the Hulk, that are just that can just transform.
And speaking of the transformation, like a genetic manipulative, I don't know what you'd call that. What would you call that? Like a genetic change, to where he transforms.
Oh, the shape-shifting and capability.
Yeah, and there's one right there, if you want to dive into mythical creature lore and supposed supernatural and superhuman powers. This is more on the supernatural side, but the stories of like the Wendigo and how it can mimic voices and things along that line.
And also, freaky. If you can, a human can mimic those voices, given the certain telling your vocals to mimic certain other energetic patterns. Like say you have a person who's emanating a particular pattern, and then you find the frequency they're humming on. You can go hum basically in that same wavelength. The Sasquatch do this all the time, where they can mimic coyote, wolves, even other people. This is the only reason you hear it differently than the other animals is because they want you to know they're there, but they can perfectly mimic through their vocal manipulations, frequency ranges. They can mimic other animals and people.
And when I think of real humans that have supernatural powers like this, well, just think of your best singers. I think, getting voices like that, angelic voices, if you will, that's a form of a superpower. Mongolian throat singers, think of the talent that it takes to do that. I couldn't even fathom doing that for 3 minutes before I feel like my throat was going to bleed out. And, there's people like that. That is true talent in itself. Also, when you're thinking of voice manipulation, when I think of true talent, true superhuman power, possibly, I shouldn't say superhuman power, but superhuman talent, if you will. The one guy from, I know he was in Spaceballs. I know he was in Police Academy. He's the one that makes all those voices with his mouth.
Yes, I know exactly.
But he can not move his lips. He can make all these noises. I don't know what the guy's name is. You probably know who I'm talking about.
Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about. where he was on that famous scene from Spaceballs where he's like mimicking the not only the sounds on the radar, but he's mimicking where he's going, and then Rick Moranis attacks the
something on the radar, sir. What was that? Something on the radar, sir.
and then like he puts it down and he's still doing it, and they rip the thing out of the console. It's one of the funniest scenes he had. Yeah, but
we have reached ludicrous speed.
Yeah, that's one of the funniest movies they've ever made, right there. Yeah,
I'm telling you, Chris, we need to remake it.
Oh yeah, we need to either remake it or have a sequel.
I know it. I know it. We need to. They're remaking all these other dim-witted, horrible movies. I might as well remake a good one. And
the problem is you can remake that or have a sequel. If they screw it up, you end up screwing up its legacy pretty much, and you don't want to do that. Yeah.
Well, that's why you don't screw it up. You just make it as good as it was. I know Mel Brooks is still alive. I believe he's like 100 years old. But how cool would it be to have him have like a cameo appearance in it as himself at the end or something? He probably can't do a lot, because he's 100. But
yeah, oh yeah. But it would still be pretty cool though.
And hey, there's a transformation into a superpower right there, superhuman power right there. Longevity, long life. There's many cultures around this world right now that are living extremely long lives. I think of the Icarians in Greece. It's an island just off of Greece, if I remember correctly. But they live to be 100 years old, 110 years old with very little disease. 1 or 2% of the people have cancer there. 1 or 2% of the people have heart disease there. As opposed to 60% here. And I heard an advertisement the other day that autism rates, I know just about a decade ago, autism rates were 1 in 80. Now they're 1 in 40. Give me a break. I mean, come on. There's something should tell you there's something higher going on right there. And that's just pure evil, probably. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's alien experimentation. I found out, even though there's higher frequency people coming into a lower frequency body, you have aliens screwing around with the genetic code. That's why you're seeing a lot of these genetic abnormalities increase. They're screwing around more and more. You're seeing the evidence of that out in the open, even with some superpower type stuff. There's also people that have had nano enhancements, like in the secret space program, super soldiers that have had both vampiric and werewolf enhancements. That's actually taken place as well. That's considered superhuman ability, where in the secret space program, they pump a bunch of nanites into their system to bulk up the muscles and to basically bulk them up like Master Chief in Halo. The same thing. When they grow in size, essentially, they would be bigger. It taps into the molecular cellular solid ability and grows them in size like Master Chief. There's also a bit of technology, they're called the med bed, that's out there, where people lay on this slab of bed, this like stone slab, lit up stone slab looking edifice. Then you have a room that's the same type of thing, like a closet almost. And what it does is it taps into that set of healing abilities and regenerates the person like Wolverine, essentially. And it's the same identical thing. That's the difference between healing and regenerating. Wolverine regenerates. If you heal a cut, if you cut yourself in the heels, that's healing. Wolverine can regenerate from one cell. There's a difference there. So that's what the med beds do. They activate that ability, and you can regrow limbs a whole bit with one of those pieces.
And it's immediate. It doesn't take a long period of time.
Yeah, it's like boom, and it's done. Yeah, I've heard of that, where they can regrow limbs in the secret space program. There's a piece of technology also that are these little like ringlets that you could put on an amputated limb. They're octagonal and they're about this big, and they slide it onto, say if you have a stump or something like that, and within minutes you have a new arm coming out or a new leg coming out. It's a little translucent because it's brand new, but it eventually adapts to the body. But it tells the cells around the amputation site, hey, stupid, you're supposed to have a limb here. And it taps into the energy that extends out, like a phantom limb syndrome. It taps into the energy and it regrows the limb exactly to the original template, what it was supposed to look like, what the cells are telling it to look like. So they can manipulate those different types of capabilities. This is why nuclear energy is so dangerous, because it tells those cells, hey, you have an infinite number of combinations, become some mutated creature or something.
Yeah,
like that.
And alters you.
And alters you. That's
10 toes on each foot.
Yeah, and it's exactly, that's how that happens with those mutations. That's why in the show Smallville, whenever they touch the kryptonite, they'd have those mutations as well. That's what they based that off. It was like the infinite combinations of nuclear energy, essentially.
At least I'd be a better swimmer.
Exactly. You don't know what the hell the nuclear energy would mutate. It might take some creepy thing, and then all of a sudden you're like a slimy, and you're like a swamp thing that has to. It's like
a beast from the swamp.
Yeah, like Swamp Thing or Swamp Beast or a Skunk Ape or something like that.
Skunk Ape. Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of. Yeah. I'd like to read a little passage from this book. It's actually a Time Life book, and they had a series in regards to the supernatural and paranormal and just strange. It was a very excellent book series, really. I snagged this from a guy. I don't have the complete series. I'm about 6 or 7 books shy, but I snagged them all for like $25 off of Craigslist like a decade ago. I've read about half of them just because you know how libraries go, but the ones I've read so far have been excellent. This is one of them. But it's from Time Life Books, and there's copyright in 1987. This is the Psychic Powers book. And they dive into a lot of things. If you've been curious about this, try to find yourself some of these books. But this is a story about Samuel Clemens. Do you know who Samuel Clemens was?
Yes, Mark Twain. Yes.
There you go. Yeah, ding dong. And we just drove through Hannibal, Missouri on our way to the Daytona 500 here not too long ago. That's apparently where he grew up. So sometime might have to go on that riverboat there. That'd be cool to do a ghost hunt there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I seen in May, the end of May, they have like a Sam Clemens Day or something there and celebration.
Oh, yeah, they honor him pretty heavily. Yeah, yeah.
And speaking of the which, if Sam Clemens of Hannibal, Missouri had been content to spend his life as a river boatman, a remarkable episode in psychic lore would have been lost to history. But his often autobiographical writings in later years as the author, Mark Twain, made some of his most personal thoughts public. Among them is the story of a dream he had about his younger brother Henry in 1858. And Sam Clemens would talk about this psychic dream that he had his entire life afterwards. At that time, Sam Clemens was apprentice pilot on the steamboat Pennsylvania, which plied the Mississippi River between New Orleans and St. Louis. Henry, a likable and handsome lad of about 20, was a clerk on the same vessel. One night when the Pennsylvania was berthed in St. Louis, Henry stayed on the ship while his older brother lodged at a boarding house on shore. Sam dreamed that he saw a metal coffin resting on 2 chairs in the sitting room, and in the coffin the laid-out body of Henry, his brother. On Henry's chest was a bouquet of white flowers with a single crimson flower in the center. The vision was so vivid that when Sam awoke in the morning, he did not realize he had been dreaming. He thought he was awake, seeing all this in his dream. So right there, he was lucid dreaming. You know, he not really even controlling his own dream. He was just aware that he was dreaming. He dressed and moved toward that door. He wrote in his autobiography, thinking that I would go in there and have a look at it, but he changed his mind. I thought I could not yet bear meet my mother. He went out on the street and walked about a block, and then it suddenly flashed upon me that there was nothing real about this. It was only a dream. So he kind of snapped back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. But anyhow, he told his sister that he had dreamed, but he mentioned nothing of it to Henry on their trip downriver together. So he didn't tell his brother about the premonitic dream that he was having. In New Orleans, Sam was transferred to the steamboat Lacey, so they swapped boats, which was to head back upriver 2 days after the Pennsylvania. On the night before Henry sailed, Sam got to talking about disasters on the river and what to do in case of an accident. Don't lose your head, he advised his brother. The passengers will do that. What Henry should do, he said, was to help the woman and children into the lifeboat and then swim to shore himself. On that note, the brothers parted, and hours later, the Pennsylvania sailed. 2 or 3 days later, when Sam and the Lacey reached Greenville, Mississippi, they were greeted at the landing with grim news. The Pennsylvania is blown up just below Memphis at Ship Island. 150 lives lost. According to that first report, Henry was not among the casualties, but the news got worse as the Lacey moved from port to port upriver. By the time Sam reached Memphis, he knew that 4 of the Pennsylvania's 8 boilers had exploded, and many of the passengers and crew had been killed outright, and that others had been scalded almost to the point of death. Henry was one of the latter, so he was pretty much burned to his death. Sam found his brother in Memphis and stayed with him until he died. A kind citizen of the city then took Sam in and gave him a bed. Exhausted with grief and strain, he fell into a profound sleep. When he woke, he went to the place where Henry's body lay. It was a room with several other victims of the explosion, all awaiting burial services. The coffins provided by the city were of plain white pine, except for Henry's. His youth and beauty had appealed to several ladies in Memphis who had collected $60 to buy him a special metal coffin. Sam Clemens saw his brother lying exactly as he had seen him in his dream, in an open metal coffin, resting on two chairs. About the only item from his dream that was missing was a bouquet of flowers. As he stood there looking on, an elderly woman entered the room with a large bouquet of white flowers, in the center of which was tucked a single red rose, and placed the bouquet on the dead man's chest. In the most awful sense, Sam's dream had come true. So Sam talked about that his entire life. So there's are these supernatural, superhuman abilities? I don't think that they're necessarily more supernatural as they are superhuman. I think they're going on invisibly right in front of us all the time, mind to mind connection.
Oh yeah, what he was doing was, it was basically a premonition. And I heard a very good phrase from Doctor Who one time. They basically said premonition is remembering in reverse. And I always thought that was very, very interesting, where you're getting bits and pieces of the future. Like I always see it as like shimmers on a pond, where you're connecting to these different aspects of time ahead. And sometimes it comes true, sometimes it doesn't, or it's variations in between. His was exactly correct. So he was picking up on when his brother was going to die, but also he could have been getting this from the soul connection too. Whereas either some being was warning him telepathically that it was going to happen, or the entirety of his, what we call the oversoul, was basically telling him, hey, this is about to take place. And his mind was connecting to that overall energy. Samuel Clemens, or Mark Twain, was actually very sensitive to these things. He wrote about a lot of this his whole life. So I feel he was one of the earlier sensitives, or one of the earlier psychic type of people, where
I think so too. Yeah. I've heard that before too from a few different people, that they think that he was, a multitude of things, maybe even possibly a clairvoyant. Another gal that I find interesting in history, probably from around that same time era, really is Sarah Winchester, who built the Winchester Mystery House. All the stuff she dabbled in. She was kind of quite the interesting gal, practicing more supernatural stuff, but I
find that very interesting, though, that she was able to, when she built that house and still continued to build on it. When I went there, some friends and I went to the Winchester Mystery House, and the energy.
Oh, you did? You've been there?
I've actually physically been there, and it is very disorienting to walk through that place. Even if you're like in a window next to like the outside, like you feel you can get outside, you feel trapped. And it's like if you're in a room and you go into one room and there's a stairway that leads to nothing or nowhere, or a door that leads over an edge. Even in the basement, there were ghosts in the basement there of that place that couldn't get out. I was helping some ghosts out while I was there because they were stuck in there. What was going on was there were so many different varieties of colors, walls, and barriers and such that were in there, and stairs that led to nowhere. I've seen even though ghosts can go through walls and all this other stuff, there's certain color variations and certain patterns that will block certain energies and will ensnare either negative entities or ghosts. So you have so she knew enough to confuse these particular entities. The whole myth behind it was that she felt the ghosts of the ones that died by the Winchester rifle were the ones telling her to build the house. I've always felt it was demonic telling her to do it. Like something demonic that was trying to just get her to go neurotic and do this. But it also trapped ghosts, which told me demons wanted the ghosts to be stuck in there so that they could feed off the energies. So I found a couple demons in that house that were stuck in there, because certain types of demons will wedge into certain like crawl spaces and like where pipes and everything are and vents are and everything, and in attic spaces. That whole house was nothing but crawl spaces. So that was like a demon's haven. They wouldn't have ever had to leave, even if they were stuck in there. They wouldn't
all the trap places.
Yeah, they wouldn't have ever had to leave. So
bouncing off the walls like a bouncy ball, going all over the place.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They ping off of the different areas of the house.
Oh, I wish we could hunt that place.
Oh, yeah. I did a ghost box session outside of the Winchester house. I couldn't do it in it, but I did it outside of it. And it would have been great to do it in the basement or like up in the house somewhere, but you're not allowed to do that. But but yeah, oh yeah, I was picking up on all sorts of also the symbolism that's in there. They have the different gods and goddesses, like gods of like the spring and summer, like equinoxes and harvests and everything like that, to where basically geometrically it aligns to different times of year. And I noticed that if you go there at different times of year, different things can be stuck in different rooms at different times in that house. So she was picking up on exactly what to do, but she was making it more chaos than order. So it was essentially order and chaos in the center. So it was trapping a bunch of stuff in the center. So that it was creepy. I wouldn't want to be stuck in there at night, but
Yeah.
I'd go stupid in there if I had to sleep in one of the bedrooms or something at night. But yeah, but she definitely had the same type of gifts that we do when we're picking up on the energies and everything. She was definitely picking up on some of the ghosts of the Winchester rifle. Some of them were there too. So so she was picking up on them, but it was overall it was demonic trying to get her to continually focus on that project.
While we're on this topic, I feel I must. Guess what I was shooting this last weekend? I have my 1894 Winchester 30-30.
Oh yeah.
And speaking of Mr. and Mrs. Winchester, thank you, Mr. Winchester.
Oh yeah, those are supposed to be very, very good rifles. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a very good one. Yeah, they still make them exactly to the same spec as from long ago. Yeah, there we go. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Sarah, if you're here, would you just load this thing for me? I wish.
Yeah,
you're not welcome in my house, Sarah. So don't come.
And I think Sarah Winchester tried to come through on the ghost box while we're out there. It'd be good to take a second whack at that place because it's actually quite interesting. You know, also building up these particular powers. I've been told, like Isaac and them told me that the rate that I end up using, like the different capabilities, like doing downloads and doing channelings and such, it builds up those capabilities like a muscle. And like basically you're like your weightlifting, except in the mental capabilities, where this is why some of those gray species have like these gigantic brains, because it's like you're building those synapses up. And what's going on is, like when I do, say, remote viewing, or when I bilocate, is essentially the same difference, where I'm basically taking my light body into an area to view into someone's room. And depending on how screwed up the energies are is how I can perceive the environment. It's not always smart to walk into a place where you don't know what the hell's in there. It's like with anything. You don't open a door that you don't know what's on the other side of it. And so I can usually intuitively sense when there's something wrong. Like if it's very dense and heavy, where it's like bone crushing, you don't go near it. And I do that with regular life too. When I'm going around, I can feel like the dense pockets, like if it's like bone crushing or if it's like open. And it's I can feel the minute changes, just the little minute energetic changes, like even a single object that is either there or not there. I can usually feel that. That's why I don't have a whole lot like around me. Like I'll have my stones on my shelf, like different books, stuff like that. But I can tell when it's a single object that's like almost become a black hole of like energies, where it's like just denser than the surrounding environment. And it took a while to build that up. Well, I was sensitive to begin with, but when I went through my near-death experience in 2009, it accelerated that like 10 times. And
I couldn't believe that happened in Tucson.
Yeah, that happened in Tucson.
And I was walking across like the same rough area that you were in too. That's crazy.
Yeah, you were right next to. You were literally on the same street where I got
crazy.
Yeah, that was in Tucson, next to that giant park that's in the middle of Tucson.
No wonder. Hey, before I even knew that, I think I made the joke. I said somebody was going to get ran over here, and apparently stuff hasn't changed. Because we seen some guy running away from the cops right down there when we were there, right in the middle of traffic, and then he got onto some other street and they just left him be. So I don't know if they were just chasing him out of a certain area or.
Oh yeah, that's that area is full of crime there, and also they don't have any stoplights in that area, and there's that really fat, long
Hmm.
crosswalk that's right there, and that's where I got hurt.
Yikes.
Yeah, and it's oh yeah, where many people have died on that exact spot where you were walking there. In that literally
Yeah.
around in that park, there's like dozens of people that have been killed with the same type of death, car hitting them. Even before I got hurt, there was a girl that died like 2 weeks before on that exact crosswalk. What happens is you leave that imprint and that like blight on the land where it goes into repeat mode. It goes into this repeat entanglement string over and over again. And that's
And the
what's
cycle
happening.
never breaks.
Yeah, unless you find a way to audit that and break that cycle and reverse it completely, it just keeps happening over and over and over like that. And that's what I was basically locked into that cycle, unfortunately, when that same thing happened when the car hit me. So that I didn't perceive it as well then, but when my brain rebooted after the near death experience, I came back with some of my more accelerated information from the secret space program, and I was able to perceive things like I do now. And it's done nothing but accelerate as I do my sessions and shows and everything. It can be annoying because it's like you perceive all these things and you can't always enjoy it. It takes some of the joy out of it too. There's like a give and take there. It's like the character of Hercule Poirot from Agatha Christie, where he perceives all the world around him, and he even says that it can make life unbearable too at the same time. Where you're seeing the patterns, but at the same time you want to see the forest, and you want to see the separate trees, but at the same time you're seeing the pattern that the forest and trees encompass, and it's not always the same as other people perceive it. And sometimes it can be a downer, but at the same time I wouldn't trade it because it allows me to perceive the world differently.
Yep. I always like that too. That unique traits, I guess, per se. Everybody's specialized in something.
Mm-hmm.
It seems, even though a lot of people might not even be aware of it. I don't know, as if I was at one time, just kind of grew into it, I guess. I don't
Yeah,
know.
most people don't know they're perceiving that, or they're energy sensitive. Sometimes their mood changes like this, and they're wondering why. It's the outward energies affecting their brain, and this is why I have the hat on, because it even though my hair is getting screwed up because of it, I have the shungite and such around my head, and I have these type of bracelets and such
Nice.
and stones that I have sitting around. I got it everywhere. I have all sorts of etheric protection, salt, silver, all that type of stuff. All the old legends are true when it comes to all the old remedies and stuff like that. From werewolves to vampires to all of this, and they fall under the superhuman capability because it's a viral contagion that's altered their insides, that's given them super strength, either bloodlust or the ability to transform into a wolfman. So that's a superhuman capability that's in the form of a viral contagion. So
Strange. Let me dive on into a little article here real quick.
all right.
I want to go up to here. Let's go up here. Now, this is an article from mentalfloss.com. 8 People with Real Superpowers by David K. Israel. Now let's go right here. The Iceman himself. Running shirtless and shoeless may not seem like a superhuman power until you consider that Wim Hof ran a half marathon 200 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle, where the temperature is nearly negative 20 degrees, and the run took 5 hours and 25 minutes. At one point, the attending physician on the run warned Hof not to continue because she couldn't guarantee that his toes would survive. They did. The Iceman practices tumo, a way of controlling the body's temperature that is usually only mastered by Tibetan yogi monks. And I've heard something about this, like they can literally, through their breath work, kind of just regulate their body temperature through breath work for, unlimited amounts of time. To add to his records and feats, Hoff has climbed Kilimanjaro in 2 days wearing nothing but his signature black shorts. He also broke his own record of the longest ice bath by staying submerged in ice for 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 48 seconds. Talk about cold. In 2007, he attempted to climb Mount Everest wearing only the shorts, but failed. Not because he was too cold, however, rather because he injured his foot. That was that guy Wim Hof though. It's just crazy. I've
Oh
seen
yeah,
videos.
his cells are adapted to the cold, probably from an ancient ancestral line of like either Viking
Mm,
or some kind of Atlantean lineage where they had the adaptive DNA in that area. Yeah, yeah.
that very well could be. That's a good theory, most definitely. Sounds like he could have some sort of family descendants along that line.
Mhm.
Uh, then here we go. I want to talk about one more from here. The X-ray vision girl, Natasha Dimkina, developed an interesting hobby when she was 10 years old. She found that she could scan her mother's body and describe in intimate detail the location and condition of all her mom's organs. News soon spread, and her neighbors of her hometown of Sarnsk in western Russia began showing up at her doorstep for body scans and diagnoses. The local children's hospital decided to test her abilities, and the girl was able to draw a diagram of one doctor's stomach with a dark area in the exact spot of his ulcer. She also contested the cancer diagnosis of one patient. Later tests supported Dimkina's diagnosis of a benign cyst. In England, X-ray scans of another doctor led Dimkina, she's got a weird name that I have troubles pronouncing, to describe multiple injuries that one of the doctors had received in a severe car crash without any knowledge of the accident. And the doctor was fully clothed. Obviously, Natasha's abilities have been questioned. But we put this on the list because it's fun, like all the others. But I've heard of children, basically mainly having superhuman abilities. And one of the most notable ones is not just children, humans get this too, but having superhuman strength at times of adrenaline spikes, basically, like moms lifting cars off of children and children, like lifting two men and, stories of like that. It's just crazy. So, apparently we all could have a biochemical switch, the fight or flight, I guess per
Mhm.
se could uh, just, I guess, brain chemistry in itself is kind of superhuman, humanic, if you think about it.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I've noticed that one of the most attacked spots is the mind. When some of these enemy forces try to attack someone's brain, they go for. I've noticed mainly the left side of the brain, and they'll also stifle. Then they'll go for the right side, which is creativity. Then they try to go after the front of the brain. So they try to dissect the different lobes so that we separate our own abilities out from each other, not unite the entire mind into one basically one formation instead of they want people to say, oh, they're either this or that or this. You're one being that can actually switch on abilities on and off at will. Now, I've noticed I have some give and take where sometimes my mathematical skills will fade in one area if I'm tapping into more the creative and vice versa. Sometimes there is a slight fluctuation and a give and take on any given day, given the different energies that are outside, or if say if you have an attachment or an entanglement or something you have to work on internally, or a possession even that can change the way that the brain works and the energy formations through your old cells work, because the soul is also going in through the different cells. Each, like with Wolverine, when he regenerates, the whole of his entire self is in each cell. So you have that's the same with every person. That's like also with a cockroach. If you cut its head off, it can still walk around because its brain isn't in its head. It's in every single cell. So I mean, of course, if you cut the head off a person, they die. But I'm just saying that in every cell, you have the memory of the soul, which was all the past lives. You have the memory of all the family members and ancestors that came before you. In there, you have that entire library within you already. So therefore, what's in that library is, like, say, how to regenerate limbs, or how to use your psychic capabilities, or how to even walk on water or walk on coals or climb mountains in your underwear, like Hoff does. Do things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying it came from a particular lineage where somebody had already brought that capability out, and it went through the lineage. When you bring up a capability, like say if I were to have children or something, more than likely some of them would start to exhibit the capabilities. And even weirder, this is a weird side of it. Say, even with where my glasses sit on my head right here. I was just talking to this with my massage therapist some weeks ago, where I have these dents that form on the side of my head because of my glasses. She's like, oh yeah, that particular formation, your body has accepted that formation. And if you were to have kids, they would start to have dents in the side of their head from the echo from where the glass is set. So that's actually another molecular cellular solid capability or genetic, residual trait. Sometimes there's negative stuff like we call viruses in the DNA, where you have people that have embodied like horrible mindsets or horrible like energetic or soulless type of capabilities, like Adolf Hitler, for instance. You have things like that people embody certain traits, and they do that to basically rid humanity of those traits, where they'll embody the whole thing, show humanity what that looks like, and then get wiped out of existence. That's basically the whole human race auditing itself at that point, essentially getting rid of like people like him.
Can't you see this is a land of confusion?
Exactly. Yeah, that's I know I've gone deep into that concept, but it's like
That's true.
It's good.
Everything you're kind of diving on into it making sense.
Mm.
I want to talk about one more thing out of this book, and then we can probably do some closing questioning if you want.
Okay.
That just dives into some nature's sensory spectrum, and coming again from the Psychic Powers book, Time Life book. Nature's sensory spectrum. The term extrasensory perception implies unnatural, even supernatural abilities, but research into the senses of some animals suggests that the line between sensory and extrasensory may be finer than previously imagined. Animals have sense organs that react to stimuli humans cannot even detect. For example, some birds hear infrasound, noise in ultra-low frequencies, undiscernible to human ears. Many migrate for thousands of miles using sensory navigational skills scientists have yet to explain. Birds are not living in the same sensory world that we live in, explains Stephen T. Imlin, a professor at Cornell University and a leader in avian research. They are hearing, seeing, and sensing a world expanded from ours. Emlin's statement holds true for other creatures as well. Marine animals communicate underwater by sound beyond the limits of human hearing. Schools of fish move and change direction simultaneously, presumably cued by signals. Flying bats are guided by their heightened sense of hearing. Some distinguish between poisonous and non-poisonous prey by using sensors on their mouths. Some psychic researchers theorize that senses such as these may once have existed in humans, only to be submerged somehow in the evolutionary process. Perhaps, they say, people with apparent psychic powers are merely tapping into once used but long forgotten abilities. There's all these other sort of cues that are hidden within nature, and it's way more in depth than that. Just go take a 5-minute stroll in the forest. You can just look at everything around you. There's thousands of different things around you in that little bit of time, if you think about it. World is a big, immense, crazy place. So having supernatural abilities, in my mind, take advantage of your inner traits and maybe try to expand and find out what they are. And I know it's hard to with the time allotments nowadays, but there are certain things you can do to help better yourself, like Zener cards. I don't know if you've ever heard of Zener cards or not.
No, that one I haven't. No. That's interesting.
There's other thing, like there's other things like remote viewing, like we practice. You can just find somebody to put certain objects in boxes. Then you spend 5 minutes, just trying to psychically remote view what's inside that box. You're not going to get the full photogenic picture. Most of the time you're going to get smells, colors, senses, shapes, and then you kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together. But these are Zener cards.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about now.
Actually,
yeah,
on the front. They're on the front cover of the book.
Yes, that I know what you're talking about now. Where they try to get people to remote view the reverse side of the card or psychically see the reverse side of the card. Yeah.
Yep. And they were designed in 1930. Provided Joseph Banks Ryan with his basic tool for testing ESP. Each card developed with Ryan's Duke University colleague Carl Zener displays 1 of 5 symbols. A complete deck contains 5 cards of each design. A deck of the ESP cards appears face down at right. So they give you them all here, and you can practice them on the book without looking if you want. You can only do
Oh.
that so many times without remembering, in the book, but
Yeah. It's like the memory game. After a while, you're just remembering the order. After a while, yeah.
But basis of the story, there's certain exercises you can do to enhance your psychic abilities, especially, because everybody's riding solo in their own little sense of the world. Everybody's in their own bodies, and only you can advance yourself the way that you want to advance yourself. And I'm so damn sick and tired of having to spend my time helping other people. I'm about ready to say screw it all and just put it all back into myself. But I'll probably become superhuman freak of nature that can probably like fly off of my chair and like fly through the sky. And
exactly. It's very important to not always overexert yourself, even though helping people is noble. It's even more noble to help yourself first, and then bring up some of those capabilities. Then you're more qualified to help those around you at that point. And keeping yourself balanced and keeping yourself in a state of peace, essentially.
Hopefully, I guess without chaos, life would be bored.
Oh yeah, it would be boring without chaos. But there's chaos, and then there's chaos. So you don't need the other ladder. So yeah,
that's true. You don't want to. Maybe not walk below the ladder, when it comes to superstition or under the ladder.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. The people this goes under the superhuman ability category too. People have given those superstitions so much power, like the going under the ladder, that bad things end up happening. Because
like tulpas.
Collectively given.
Tulpas.
Mm-hmm.
Like your thought forms coming into existence.
Yeah, and people have given that so much power that things happen, and then people go, "See, I told you." It's like, no, you gave it that power.
Yeah, and if you want like a more physical way of seeing this, just think about if people want to raise. Pretend there's 100 workers at this business, and 90 of the 100 workers pick it and say that they want a $3 raise. They're probably going to get a $3 raise instead of getting fired. So the more power you have, the same could be with thought forms, essentially. If you're all meditating on the same thing in the same room, who knows what the hell could happen.
Yeah, there was an experiment done years ago. Exactly. People years ago did an experiment where they sat on the Washington, D.C. Mall, and they just basically meditated on peace for about maybe 5 or 10 minutes or something like that. They said the crime literally in the area dropped by like 20 or 30%. When they did that, it was a large group of people. They figured, imagine if the entire world did that, you wouldn't have that chaos anymore.
I know that people have done certain like rain prayers and things like that to try to get rain to come, and they've claimed that it's worked, these groups of people. But I've never been in on a mass. I do my own little personal sort of yoga / meditation / workout / I'm my own everything basically. So I can't.
I've seen weather manipulation as far as technology, but at the same time, the cabal has and the military has the technology, but at the same time, on the flip side, on the magic side of it, where I've seen groups of people focus on rain coming, and then the rain comes. I've seen people focus on rain stopping or snow stopping or something like that, or floods being prevented or fires being prevented. We have a friend in California that his property, that there was a fire approaching his property. He told people to get off the property because they were in a fearful state of mind. They're like, no, I can't have you here. If you have to leave, go. I'm staying right here. And they're going around going, oh my God, what are we going to do? And he's like, get off the property, go. And then he stayed there and he restored the peaceful energy, and the fire never touched his property. So it went around his property. So that's what he did. He manipulated the energy and just restored the peace. That's why he had to have all the people that were in the fearful mindset get out of there, so they weren't drawing it in there. Because then they would have said, "I told you I was going to come here. I told you." And then by saying that, you're reaffirming it. So he had to get them out of there.
He repelled it.
He repelled it. Yeah. They would have attracted it. So and there were more of them than him. So he had to get them out of it. So yeah, I found that very fascinating when he was able to do that. And it's never touched his property ever or come close.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, there's a real life, I guess, event of it taking place. The power of thought form. And there's other ones. I know that when it comes to supernatural creatures, supposedly that Slender Man and maybe a few others were supposedly created out of like a or a creation. I don't know how it all started. Didn't like some drawing rendition. So basically, an art form is an image that he thought of. He created online. Now people are starting to see it, after they, read the story.
I know exactly what happened with that. People in mass started to co-create it and gave it form. That's what essentially a poltergeist is, where either somebody is repressing an ability within themselves, like a psychic ability. Usually that one's more female, where they're projecting that out and they're haunting their own home space. Or you have a mass group of people that can create a Frankenstein poltergeist energy, where they can paste it together and create an actual entity out of this. And that's what happened with the Slender Man. People en masse focused on it, and they created that particular thought form or energy. There's also an experiment some paranormal investigators did one time, where they created a character. They wrote a character, this complete from birth, his life, all the way through up until what would be present day. They wrote this whole script out of this character. Then they took the ghost box out and called on this character. They summoned this character, and this character ended up coming to life completely as an actual being. And what they did is they reversed the script and undid it to uncreate it, and that being was no more. They completely burned the script and said this is unmade. And I've encountered this in my own life, where there was this female entity that was following me around, and I'm going, okay, I could clearly see this redheaded, like naked lady walking around. I'm going, okay, what's this about? I thought it was a fairy or something like that, And then apparently my brain, through the imagination and everything, had run through this whole life scenario of, or this or my mind had been hijacked by some entity where it conjured this being into being. See, these other entities cannot create. We can. This is why they hijack us to create their agendas. So to basically create and co-create their agendas, like the Orion agenda, Cabal agenda, all of these. This is why they have human servants, because they can't do it. But in this case, and they might be able to do it in some small form, but in this case, I had inadvertently created or allowed the creation of this female being into being. And I had to reverse and say, now I uncreate you from this starting point all the way back to the point of origin. And I had to actually speak and say, you are unmade. And I had that's how I had to play that. And then the activity stopped. It was my own creation that was haunting the house. There's also another thing. We did a channeling on the Galactic Interstellar Council after show one time with the artist Frank Frazetta, the one that created all the fantasy depictions and animations and everything, and book covers, all that. And he, in his afterlife, he was living amongst all of his creations. We found out where people can create their own idyllic afterlives and their own idyllic spaces. He just was the totality of his oversoul, where he came in at a point in history to alter the artistic genre, went back and then took all of his creations and formed what he called Frazetta Land in his heaven. And what happened was, he said, this is how planets are born too. His oversoul was explaining they could take that creation, create a whole population, and create a world and create a universe. So they said that's how that was created. And I found that very fascinating, that while we're in our creativity and passion mode here, we're shaping the world that way. That's a superpower as well. And not just X-ray vision and all of this. And when you were mentioning X-ray vision, Isaac was in the other room going, he's like, yeah, that has useful applications now. So it's like, he was basically showing himself looking through women's clothes and all this other stuff.
Well, I might as well come pop on in for a few.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, because he was showing me this scene from Smallville where Clark's looking through the women's clothes and stuff like that. That's he does that crap too. So it's so like he'll say, "Oh, this woman has this birthmark here," and she ends up having this birthmark there. So it's like, even though he's quite perverted, it's still hilarious. So
aren't we all?
Oh yeah, we're gonna find that we have that hidden side in all of us too. So I know I do. You do. He definitely does. So it's like, and he said for it to be hidden, he would have to not show it, but he shows it all the time. So let's say, okay, Isaac, you can come on in now. This is actually very fascinating.
Present it.
Come on. Okay. Yes, you, Isaac. But yes. Okay. No, not whoever is doing this over here. No, Isaac specifically. Yes. Benevolent Isaac. Yes. Through the crystal, please. All right. Yes, indeed. This that is a fascinating ability that again has extreme real world applications that I've used quite often. But in uh, in that sense, everyone, even those listening to this, have that side of them, even if they are trying to closet it. Now, that said, there are many abilities that people have closeted on a regular basis, things that are so repressed that it is repressing themselves in their normal life operations. They're going to the word normal for a minute. They think they must behave or act in a particular way or manner in conjunction with societal norms. Societal norms are an illusion, you see. It is up to the individual to bring out their own individual passions, powers, creative pursuits, and even superhuman abilities. This is why you're seeing a plethora and mostly infinite combinations of different ability types, from people that are born with scales from their reptilian connection to that man Hoff, who could literally climb mountains in his underwear and did not feel the cold. It is because there are so many different variations from the ancient past, mainly in this case from Atlantean histories, as he said, and also from galactic histories and galactic DNA that have been introduced into the genome, where even some of your different races that you know of nowadays have galactic origins. Every human walking the earth has either elemental origins or galactic origins, you see. And so there are combinations of abilities there, and some that play nice with your current genomic sequence, and some that do not. And even experiments that are being done by aliens to increase your mental capacity or increase certain magical capabilities. Hence the Twilight Zone episode, where you see the two groups of aliens experimenting on the same man, either to get intelligence or to get super strength out of him. This is happening in the background as well. And you have these different genetic and energetic combinations, either giving strong psychic capabilities, strong strength capabilities through the different meditation or breath techniques, or a combination of the two. Even X-ray vision, which that does exist, folks, both in the werewolf and vampiric respects, as well as within the regular human respects, where literally you could look through clothes of people or even down to their skeleton. This does indeed take place on a regular basis in some groups, not necessarily even isolated ones. People like that walk amongst you. And it's not just galactic or elemental, they're human as well. And there's even the technology that allows for this, that taps into those internal abilities, such as molecular, cellular, solid, and healing capabilities and regenerative capabilities. It is, as your character of Spock once said, infinite diversity and infinite combinations. This is what's taking place in the human race. Even in the future, say in your Star Trek time frame, for instance, hundreds of years from now, you will still see even an accelerated rate of some of these different capabilities. People call humanity the grand experiment, you see, for that reason. Out in the galaxy, you have so many different genomic sequences that the possibilities are endless. Combining it with your spiritual and energetic capabilities, the sky is not just the limit anymore. It is literally the universe, multiverse, and different omniversal and super omniversal expressions in creation. It is boundless. You affect things by ripples and waves. Even one person exhibiting their true grounded self in the moment with those capabilities is having ripples and waves sent out through what you call the butterfly effect in the different aspects of the multiverse and beyond. So I can go into questions if you like.
Well, you summed it all up pretty good right there, but I got a couple of questions that I'll shoot your way. Number one, if a person's working on psychic powers, other than like Zener cards and the stuff we described, what are some other ways people can, or what are some other techniques and ways people can do to advance their techniques in the psychic realm with different, traits like telepathy, remote viewing, this goes on?
The best first thing you should do is find the silence in your own mind and in your own body. people call this meditation, but it is essentially finding the silence. When you find the silence, then you've canceled out all other distractions within the mind. You do not allow the mind to become its very own cycled distraction. When also in regards to telepathy, when you are hearing voices, either from AI components and technological components, or telepathy from malicious or benevolent beings that are out there, such as myself in that respect, you will hear it in your own voice because you're decoding synapses for the individual mental vocals, as it were, are not registering properly. So as you build that up, ask back if you hear a strange thought in your head. Ask back, as he likes to say, "Who do I have with me?" If you keep hearing this, you're connecting telepathically to a being. If you are feeling it heavy, don't allow it. If you're feeling it light, as he says, bring it through. Then, as you are speaking mentally, this being, as you build up that ability, even talking to a being that is on a slightly higher vibratory frequency bandwidth, you will begin to build up that muscle. And also recognizing around your environment what feels real and what does not feel real to you. What you thought once was real is not necessarily, and what people thought was fantasy is actually the true reality. You see, flipping that around, being completely open and ridding yourself of all biases, be it religious bias or political bias or bias towards anyone, either through color, shape, size, what have you. Getting rid of all of those things, you begin to see and perceive the world in the proper format. Once you enter into that state, you will be able to discern what is for you and what isn't, and also you will be able to discern the different vibratory energy frequencies of not only beings, but you will be able to tell, hey, this is telepathy. This thing wasn't good for me. This was good for me. The ultimate crux of what I'm saying is, after finding the silence, know what biases you have within the self, know what some people call it PTSDs within the self that are there, and some people call them inner demons. Ridding yourself of inner demons is actually crucial to the balance and the silence, and ridding yourself of this is also crucial to being able to build up these particular capabilities, or your mind begins to take on a different format, or your body as well begins to take on a different format and a different set of instructions, therefore distancing yourself from the very thing you're attempting to get to. And this leads me to trying and pushing yourself towards this and forcing your mind towards this is not the way to go. It's allowing your mind and body and your soul to flow as one to the capability. There's a difference. People are attempting to push to the very limit, very much like a physical person climbing a mountain would. That is more endurance based. This is more silence based, where you allow the flow of the energy to that capability. It is the exact opposite, but both can work together. Say the man climbing the mountain can also have the intuitive sense not to climb a mountain on a particular way so he does not injure his foot. You see the difference there, yes?
Very good. Just one more. So if we can try to dive on into the future, where do you see the change of like transhumanism going in the next 20 years?
This is actually an interesting question because there will be some people that choose to go into the transhumanism, and then there's some people that will choose to go into the superhumanism, as it were, or how humans are meant to be in that particular state. You're seeing it as superhuman because it is still, people are judging a particular norm or template or, say, grounded set of equations of how reality is supposed to be. When you rid yourself of that particular format, you're going to see that superhuman is really the norm. Now, in the next 20 or so, 30 or so years, you'll see more and more people gravitating more towards computers and coding, which is your cabal is attempting to rid other job formats out there. So people have to learn computers. And ones that don't know computers are weeded out. They see them as useless. The government will see them as useless. Those people will go into more of the superhuman abilities and more into the agrarian society type of people. Even further down the road, say 100 years from now, you'll see that, start to see that split more and more. the ones going into artificial intelligence and the ones going into the agrarian. Eventually, even further down the road, people will be agrarian, but also utilizing higher forms of technology, but not bonding with them. They will have learned that particular lesson. You see how that progresses as time goes on, yes?
Very good. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Very insightful.
Yes, thank you very much. No further questions, yes?
That does it. You summed it up very well.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
I've seen that before, where people eventually will be an agrarian society, but they'll also know how to integrate technology and properly and not have it be harmful. But they have to go through that fire with the transhumanism side first. But so they know, oh God, we can't do that. That sort of thing.
I'll never forget. My uncle told me one time he thought that civilizations have rose and they have rose to a high technological state only to fall off, and rose to a high technological state only to fall off. That's why there's things like the Antikytherian mechanism and the London hammer and all these oops artifacts that we've talked about before.
Oh yeah,
that too. Strange world. But
that's why you have the metal origolacum. We were talking about that.
Yeah.
That's also Atlantis. We were just talking about how civilizations got. Yeah, and Atlantis. What took place was in the final years leading up to the fall. People got so heavily engrossed in artificial intelligence because they were getting a signal from a different time frame from outer space. That's the Orion agenda that you hear us talk about, where scientists and spiritualists alike, viewers, there was this group of viewers we call them the Women of Atlantis, where they opened portals up to other dimensions. Then you had scientists opening up portals through time. What these negative beings were, they were using their telepathic influence to show people how to build technology like theirs here. And Atlantis became overrun by artificial intelligence after a while. And that's what brought its downfall. And then also the Orion invaders after they crossed the threshold. This is where you get some of those stories about Atlantis from, where people reached the height of opulence or the height of depravity. It was really through AI. And through the dark influences that were coming in. This is what led to its downfall. And this is our friend Moses and I have channeled a lot of information about Atlantis, and that's essentially the same thing. Origolacum was the metal that they used primarily for their circuitry and through their devices and such, like what we said in the previous episode. And people will see that by the time, of course, this episode's up. But that is the history that we've been able to see. This is why empires are rising and falling. This is why it's so important to know your own history so you don't repeat it. Yep. And apparently some people have to repeat it again in some areas to actually understand what took place.
It's all being repeated. Learn from history or you're doomed to repeat it. And there's so many dim-witted, dumb people out there nowadays. I don't mean to say that to sound rude, but it's just the honest truth. There's so many dumb, dim-witted, stupid people out there. Don't be one of those dim-witted, dumb, stupid people. And I don't mean to say that to sound rude. I mean to say that to sound realistic. Don't fall into the trap. Don't be that mouse that gets caught with legs broke off, or else you have to chew them off yourself. One of the two.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. And Isaac went, "Be awake, folks. Don't be woke and stupid." Thank you.
That's a good way to end. Until next time, everybody, you stay safe, stay healthy, and achieve everything you can. We'll talk at you later.
Yes, and now you have exited the conspiracy sector. Bye-bye, folks.
Bye, everybody.